you guys. It's me, Dr. Torie. My book is officially out. And yes, it is time to talk about ACEs. You guys can find the books everywhere. However, I would encourage you guys to go to my website, VicTORIEus.com, and place your order today. Yes, it's time to talk about ACEs. Let's go, y'all.
Hello, you guys. Welcome to another episode of Be Victorious. You guys know who I am. It's Dr. Torie, and I am here with a very special guest of mine. I think this one is going to be good. We're talking about a fellow podcaster. We're talking about somebody that's heavy on mental health. And I think what I love is that the experiences that she's going through right now are very familiar to me. I've been trying to get this person on for a while, and it is my pleasure to introduce Agyei. Where are you?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Torie. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I said, finally, when I saw ACEs with your, whole platform and research industry specialization here, I said, yeah, she gets it. My madness. I'm going to have to talk to her.
And here we are.
And here
we are. Tell me where your interest in ACEs lies. What made you so interested in supporting and advocating for ACEs?
I've been I guess like a lot of, and this overused word, trauma, but a lot of trauma survivors in adulthood, when we start learning about all of this stuff, mind you, neither of my degrees are in psych anything. You just become a student and a patient of this stuff after, so many hospitals, so many doctors visits, so much reflection. It's like the cancer kids at St. Jude's, they can pronounce otolaryngologist before they can pronounce Lego. So for me, I guess looking back, I think Dr. Nadine Harris-Burke did a TED Talk on ACEs, I think a couple of years ago. And when I saw that, I said, oh crap, I was the poster child for a whole lot of years. I just didn't know what that was. I didn't know there was a name for it.
Right.
So going back, I'm in North Carolina. I'm in Raleigh. Okay. I want you to still have a show tomorrow, so don't get mad at me if I name drop. But at the time, I wasn't living in Wake County when I moved here in 2008. I was in Chapel Hill. So the behemoth, UNC, and the one right next door, Duke, both of their doctors, if that's what you want to call them, both ERs, both psych units. I was the ER at both psych unit at UNC, basically tried to kill me. So when I saw how women, particularly African-American women and homeless African-American women, were treated by the mental health system, especially some very old Caucasian dollars, that behemoth, I said, no, I have to advocate. So basically I know this sounds bad, by my second day there at the neurosciences hospital, I'd say the nursing team was really, really good to us. That attending and all of the hubris that had something to prove to their med students, that was a different story. And I annoyed the hell out of them because I took it upon myself to advocate and to make aware other patients. Like, hey, that's not, no, this is your right in North Carolina. No, let me explain adjudication, and all of that stuff. So the short answer is that's where it came from. A lot of my own personal mental health struggles and how I was treated by the system.
And you were in the hospital for what?
Which time?
Let's talk about the recent situation.
I haven't been into a psych hospital. I haven't been hospitalized, thank God, since February of 2018. And coincidentally, that was at UNC. There wasn't, I don't believe, anywhere in Durham where I could have been taken. So I was taken back to Chapel Hill. But I told myself, after that last fiasco, I'm never going back to a psych hospital ever again. And I have not.
Good for you.
Now, the therapist I had, she was just mourning. She retired. I don't know if I did that, but she retired, and I had some other ones since then. But yeah, it's been a journey. And if anything, my entire life and like you said, the podcast isn't for the weak, but specifically, leaving home, getting your sea legs, and all of my 20s and 30s, that is, what I strive to help people avoid just through education and awareness. Like, sis, nobody told me X, Y, Y, X, Y, Z. Let me help you, because I come from where you're going.
And so tell us your ACEs score.
Child, 7,000. It said 8, but I would almost say 9, simply because there was a half of an answer. I think it was question 5 that did not apply. But I think the other half of that did. Can't remember what it was. Something about feeling loved. And to that I say, on which day? Because I grew up with a mom from Trinidad, and I'm gonna give a shout out to a creator. This man, oh God, he's worth his weight in gold. Certified Samson. He's Trinidadian. His mom is Trinidadian. I did this one particular video that I was looking for. I wanted to send you, and if you look at the comments, it doesn't matter whether it's Trini, Jamaican, St. Croix, anywhere in the Caribbean. We were all raised by the same closet psycho parents. They rule with an iron fist. The moms are, they just have this fight spirit by default. Patriarchy is strong. They rule with an iron fist. And if you heard my episode 6, cannot stand to be wrong.
Right.
So we had a lot of that going on. It's like American mommy dearest to an exponent.
So what you're saying is, granted, you live here, however, you grew up in an environment where ACEs was really normalized bad.
Yeah, I grew up in an American household, but by Trinidadian not set of parents. Mama was the side chick. That's a whole different story. But in a household by someone who is not from this country. And if there are second generation folks listening, I don't care what island or dot on a map country your people are from, they can tell you, seriously, if this were live, they would be calling you right now. Like, yep, that's my mom. Yep, she did that. Yep. I'm still, yeah.
What makes you the cycle breaker?
Oh, because I've always been the black sheep. We couldn't talk. Gen X kids are not these kids today. We just could not talk back. Whatever I says goes. A lady should be seen and not heard. You cry, I'm gonna give you something to cry for. So because I couldn't exactly be rebellious, not to an extreme, under my mother's roof, my payback, my way of pissing her off, the way she set her alarm to get up every morning and piss me off, was to do things differently than she did. I would ask the questions. I would look at folks like they're crazy and didn't mind telling, Auntie so-and-so. But what you did was, hey, if I got a pop to the mouth, and I felt like I was right, is not out of arrogance, but I want her to see, ma'am, there is something fundamentally wrong with your thinking. This one ain't my fault. And this is also where birth order comes into play, right? Okay. Because let's do the math. Y'all, listeners, hear me. I'm old school. I read and write. I know don't nobody do that no more, so I'm gonna need y'all to take notes, because right about now, y'all gonna be confused. Prime example. Okay, so mom and husband grew up, born and raised Trinidad, got married. She was an abuse victim. He beat the crap out of her. They had 4 children. They got divorced. So like everybody else in the 60s, jumped on a banana boat, came to America, and worked like a dog until they got their green card. She met my dad, and they never married, of course, because at the time he was already married. But interestingly enough, she never remarried. And I had always wondered if that was, because of the abuse she suffered in her first marriage. I don't know. Stay focused. Okay. So she met my father somewhere in the 70s
Mhm.
when my older sisters, out of the 4 kids she had in Trinidad, she had 3 back to back to back. The first 3 were girls, step ladder. They, were under her skirt. And fast forward a few years, then she had the oldest boy, who I do not call brother. He's just the oldest, waste of space. Then when she came here, she had the baby boy, but my dad, 4 years later, she had
Mhm.
me. So that's what was going on. And if you have 3 children, okay, 4 for the most part, that last one, God rest his soul, who basically worship you. And here comes this lamb out brat 4 years later, who just say, no, we're not doing this. No, mommy, this is weird. No, you can't go upside my head for something that was your fault. They did that.
Right.
I'm not going to. So
Right.
she found ways like to get under my skin,
Mm.
and we had a habit of doing that to each other. But for her, it was, how dare you define me? And for me, like, no, damn it, I am going to break this cycle, starting by committing my life to birth control and never bringing any more kids into this gene pool.
Wow.
Never.
You answered the question. I mean,
No. Why would I do that to society? Y'all don't just a kid from my lineage. Who? Okay.
but you know what? So let's have this conversation, because honestly, I respect that answer. I respect that answer based off of us having previous discussions, us having the conversation. I appreciate when you send me good things. We converse.
Mm-hmm.
I respect that answer, because there are people that can't, or people that do, and then they have to go through the things that you discussed. So thank you for being honest. Let's be clear, because we don't think about that. We don't think about how much of an impact it would be if these things were to happen. So for you to use that mother wound
Mm-hmm.
and that generational trauma
Mm-hmm.
and make decisions, congratulations. Because that's what you just told me. So let's be clear.
Yeah.
You answered the question. You
I
did.
hate to see the guilt that a lot of women live with, just our conditioning. We have so much, layers of things that we need to excavate and just get rid of as a people. But I think women in general, someone said on Instagram somewhere, God, she needs to trademark this. She said, we were duped by Disney. Like, yeah, that, and our moms beating us over the head with a man every 5 minutes since we were children. So then we grow up with this just diluted expectation of, having the Prince Charming, some dude to rescue us, my Boaz, and having a baby. But then when you really, really ask women, okay, so if that doesn't happen, what are you gonna do? If he just up and left, or the ship sank, or I don't know, he got robbed at the chicken place, or even the kid died, what are you going to do?
Right.
You hung your hat on this thing, and it does not play out like in the movies with the white picket fence and the dog named Toto. I don't want that life.
I respect that.
Get disability. It's already hard, honey. I am cutting coupons. If the Goodwill had coupons, I would be there.
You know what? So let's recap real quick. I'm liking this. You talked about yourself. You talked about your motivation for being a cycle breaker. You talked about your parents. You talked about your ACEs score. You talked about your motivation for mental health. You talked about your reason for everything in your passion and your purpose in your podcast, which I truly appreciate. No, I do, because people have to understand the things that we normalize are the things that you just talked about. You talked about things that happen in households right now.
It's the conditioning. It is the conditioning. One of my favorite Black male therapists, Paul by Shay Williams. Hey, Tara, his wife, she's an educator, retired educator. He said, because there's always that comeback, well, you're supposed to honor your mother and honor your father and blah, blah, blah. I can't wait till I see this in print. Paul said, sometimes you have to honor and respect from a distance so you won't be triggered to respond and react dishonorably. Hot damn. I mean, when are we going to get it through our heads? There are people who will watch the movie Precious and still say, well, but that's her mother.
Yep. You're right.
Huh?
You're right.
One more again.
You're right. People don't so this is the thing people don't understand. We normalize this.
Yep.
And we have to stop that for people to understand. Like how you said earlier, you didn't know that there was a term. People really don't know about ACEs for real. They don't. And so there's this term. And once people understand exactly what it is, that's how you can identify it, you can understand, you can help, you can do what you need to do. But for you, we started off talking about how you worked your way into the mental health system. People really don't know your story. So tell us about your health as of right now.
Okay, I'll give you the short version in years. I left home at 17 because I turned 18 in October. So here I am, August of 95, 17 years old, headed to an HBCU full of grown men. Oh, Jesus. But I left home to avoid getting pregnant by a family member. Okay, that was in 95. And, I've written chapters about what 95 to 99 looked like. And looking back, what I realized some years, actually about maybe 5-6 years ago, I was able to match, say, 2 or 3 different situations in my life, things that I had suffered, I had overcome, I experienced, yada, 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 with almost every symptom on the symptom list for about 4, maybe 3 or 4 mental health diagnoses. Of course, this is the 90s, I'm Black. Nobody's talking about, mental health this, and not the way the cash cow that it is now, right? Black folks not going to therapy. Fast forward to 99, things were good. You couldn't tell me nothing. I had my first apartment in my name with furniture, a car that I purchased, everything was good. And then 2001, that's when ish really hit the fan. I had gone through this training. I will not get into it, but women stay out of Job Corps and the United States military. Blah. I'd gone through this training where, in this case, now you can't run, can't cuss anybody out. God help you if you do. There's no telling anybody, and you can't leave. So for a solid 11 weeks, every single day, I was sexually harassed and called names. So all of the wanting to fight and mouthing off that I had done all of those years prior, this is where I crashed. Fast forward to 2008. I did not know I had PTSD because, I heard that word on TV before, and it was combat fatigue. And I said, well, I never went to combat. I didn't get stationed anywhere. So, I moved, again, poor planning, poor insight, from Portsmouth, Virginia to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, because I had my sights set on going to UNC for grad school. So that was 2008, and I didn't watch the news and find out we were in a recession till I got here.
Right.
So, I got here, could not, find a job even with all the so-called friends and hookups that I had on the undergrad and graduate level. Ran out of money and then ended up homeless. So I went bouncing around from so-called friend to so-called friend for about a year until I got on my feet. And fast forward to 2010, I, had epilepsy in 2003. So I was having seizures on again, off again. And of course, with no insurance, you just can't go to the ER every day and keep getting prescriptions. So it all crashed in April of 2010. Seizure had really hit my head so bad. I couldn't work as a communication specialist for a pharmaceutical company anymore. That nice two-bedroom apartment I lost. Headaches were so bad I had to withdraw from grad school. Lost the apartment in August. By October, I had sold my car for money, and now I'm sleeping on the floor. So there were a lot of diagnoses and a lot of who I call JVMDs, these recent grad psychologists and psychiatrists who they just had me on a hamster wheel with a bunch of meds that were not working. So add withdrawal to the mix, and me fighting every doctor and enlisting every social worker because you're not going to treat me like this.
Right.
On up until 2012, I got disability. 2016, I lost the disability. It's another episode. And in between there, my only saving grace was my one therapist who by 2020, I had for 9 years, Dr. Deborah McFarland. She was my constant. None of the others had worked, maybe with the exception of one, but I had spotty therapy through all that time. Didn't know anything was wrong. And, that whole training program, and well, it wasn't us. You were screwed up when you came here. Not 100% screwed, maybe about 60, because before 2001, sir or ma'am, I was not having nightmares. I did not hear voices. I was not having panic attacks, nor was I on any psychotropic medication. So I'll be damned if I sit there and say this was all my fault. Right. And I'm showing up to the VA trying to commit fraud, because that's not what happened.
So disability, homelessness,
sexual assault,
all of this under the ACEs categories. And then you go reach out for help. And one thing that you said that I have to pinpoint is that you know about therapy. You went to therapy, but the therapy that you went to was not it. It wasn't until you met the lady that you met, the one that you were with for 9 years, that actually was the help. Yeah. And I am going to bring this up because we reach out to therapists, and I honestly don't think we know what we're reaching out for. And I think that's why it's so important for that ACEs questionnaire to come to play, because it's not the answer for everything, but it's an introduction. And I do believe if they would have introduced that to you a long time ago, because when you think about it, we're the same age. 95 graduated. Hey, you know what I mean? 98 is when the ACEs quiz was available. This is one of the largest quizzes, largest studies in the United States, and people still don't know about it. You know why? I'm going to keep it 100. Because of those 17,000 people that were interviewed, we weren't. And so here it is, over the years, you have people like me. I'm going to shout myself out because I did my own research.
Yes.
You have people that have done this. Shout out to Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris. Shout out to all of the people that have compiled all of this research on ACEs to get more information out there, and we finally have it.
Exactly.
And so that's the good thing about it. That's the reason why all the stories that you just said, the reason why we're not getting as much help as far as mental health, because the bill is already high. You said it, and you've been through it. You're a witness of it. You go to the hospital and it's like, okay, well, let's push you on out the way, or we can't keep you here longer, or you have this going on. You have epilepsy. And have been kicked in and out, in and out, in and out, because that epilepsy came from somewhere. And to be rejected by people, we're talking about healthcare systems. I'm just trying to make a sense for everybody, because you all don't know her story for real. She's telling you her story. Yeah. She's been rejected by the mental health systems off of things that she really can't control.
And what people don't know, and I was so glad I had the opportunity to interview Dr. Tracy Marks. I mean, renowned Black sister psychiatrist, forensic psychiatrist for over 20 something years. And I really, really wanted her to reiterate the fact that since these people live to point out fraud and would rather tell you you are faking than to help you. I am really glad that she has made multiple YouTube videos on what ADHD looks like in adults versus children, and especially in terms of, you know, our daily habits and executive functioning and all of that. But she gave me a nice 10-minute spiel on how difficult it really is to understand and diagnose and determine which mental illness or challenge is going on when you have an existing TBI, traumatic brain injury. Quick story. One of those days there at UNC, you know, they give you, after you get doped up like a horse tranquilizer worth of stuff and sleep it off, during the day when you're halfway coherent, just to kind of figure out what's really going on, they, you know, most places will usually give you some type of assessment. These people took it upon themselves, because you have to remember this is a research facility. So agenda. They get endowments and grants for a reason. But they took it upon themselves not to give me the ACEs score. I'm talking about 2010. The ACEs tool. They did not give me, you know, the whole list. They gave me the MMPI, the Minnesota Multiphasic, inventory. It is a glorified, thankfully, from what I understand, it's not used anymore. The MMPI is a 567 question glorified lie detector test. Why? Because somewhere question 20 might say, I had a wonderful childhood with great parents. Question in 105 said, I had I had daydreams about stabbing my mom and killing my dad. I mean, it is to trip you up. So much so, when I took, I finished it, handed it to the attending or whomever, chief of surgical importance, and he said, you know, okay, we'll give the score and our results, you know, our findings to your care team. I want to say like a few days later or something, they came back. I have a photocopy of this in the shed right now. It said, interpret results carefully. Patient either misunderstands the question, skipped a question, or is faking. Here's what I asked her. I said, ma'am, I just lost my apartment. I am officially homeless. The one thing that I came here for is to go to the Gilling School of Public Health to get my MPH. I was basically kicked out of school. I didn't just talk to my advisor. I talked to my advisor and legal counsel from Gillings. Okay. Let's not talk about the relationship with old boy and blah, 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 blah. You know, and I'm just naming things. I said, so please tell me how in God's name, riddle me this, could I possibly be faking with all of these documented, verifiable things going on? Of course.
So you're what you're saying is the public health system failed you.
You're paying attention now, huh? Yes, ma'am.
Because I wanted to make sense again to the listeners, because you have heard the podcast, you hear the different stories. Everybody's story is different. I love how you shared your story. I love how you're sharing the things that you're going through. I want the listeners to understand and know those past experiences that we talk about, which are those adverse childhood experiences, will have an effect on you. And when you get older, that effect can have a really huge impact.
Especially at this age, you know.
And do you think this is the reason why they updated the ACEs list to include things like homelessness and community violence and things of that nature?
Yeah, because not only is it's interesting that you said, and I didn't know this, the sample group, if you will, for the original ACEs tool didn't include any of us, but
Nope.
quite often these studies or tools, assessments, all of this stuff, not only do they not consider our interest in things, but at the same time they tend to have very, very biased people holding the pen. So of course, if you think all homeless folks are lazy and bottom feeders, how does that factor into ACEs? No, no, no. Let's just harp on, and I'm not minimizing, but let's just harp on sexual assault and bad parenting. And it's
So
like,
that's your story. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly.
And I think that's what people have to understand. That's why ACEs is such a really big deal, because they have categorized things. And now with them adding this new category, that's everybody. If you are in the community and you witnessed violence in your community, that's ACEs, let's be clear. We just watched, and I'll put it out there, this young man that got executed publicly, and he was innocent.
Mm-hmm.
Racism is on the list now, finally, for adverse childhood experiences. And so again, your story is valid, really valid, but people have to understand, and I will promise you, I will bet $1 that when they hear your story, people are going to agree with you. People are going to understand. People are going to feel not left by themselves, because you're not the only one that this has happened to.
Exactly.
Now, you know what's going on with me right now. You have epilepsy. I have seizures. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with me right now. It's a slow process, but guess what? I'm grateful that I'm able to do it. The crazy thing is, you've been going through this. The problem is the money for the resources, for the support is not there.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's wild that you say I've been going through this, because one thing about me, yeah, I'm full of AJ one-liners, but I hate the overuse of certain words, especially if I don't understand how that applies to me. But then, when the church mothers start talking about God never wasting experience, and your story will help someone else, I'm like, hell, I could have wrote you a story. Why did I have to suffer? But and I would say within the last 6 months, especially, I could say certain things that people's eyes will get big as saucers, and wow, I didn't know that. You mean I could get that kind of help too? And I'm like, how do you not know? But I wouldn't say that, but then I have to realize I've spent my life with my nose in a textbook. It was my saving grace. So I already know how to go onto Google, look up Department of Social Services, county specific, zip-wise specific, what are the parameters for this programs, what are the stipulations, and daggone it, who can I talk to in case you conveniently don't come to work?
Because you have a degree. And what I want people to understand and know, but hear me when I say what I want people to know, is that there was no discrimination against who you were. It's system. Because they didn't care if you had a degree or not.
Oh, yeah.
You needed services and did not receive services. It didn't have nothing to do with your degree. It had to do, you knew what to do in order to receive services for yourself. But for those people that don't know, imagine all these people out here that don't know about ACEs. Imagine these people that don't even know that sexual violence or sexual abuse is okay. People think it is okay. People think that neglect is okay. People think that being homeless is okay. People think that abuse is okay, and it's not. And that's
Right.
the reason why it was broke down the way that it is, so people can understand these categories. Yeah, it might not have been an impact on people for Marcellus Williams to pass away, but for us that have been through things, that have experienced racism, for you, for me, that have dealt with systemic racism, it bothered me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I could.
Me and you in regards to when you give me updates in regards to the hospital and how you're not getting the services that you want, they'll keep you there for 3 days and kick you out because they don't have, there's people sitting right now still in the ERs for COVID.
Yeah.
And guess what? On that same website where they store COVID is what? ACEs. Our mental health space, you guys, there's no money. There's no nothing. And so we're trying to get the help and we're not receiving services, which means we have to continue to educate.
Educate and advocate. Lately, now I don't know if you got that long Dead Sea Scroll email that I sent you, but I just kind of wanted, I just kind of wanted you to, have an idea of other things that I'm always up to where writing and advocacy are concerned. And as of late, I would say maybe the last 6-7 months, people have been contacting me saying, hey, can you put what I'm trying to say in writing in a way that, maybe a doctor or Social Security could understand, their verbiage. And I said, okay, sure. I'm talking to doctors, I'm talking to doctors, supervisors, and I just said, it's just something I've always done. I've held positions where I was a resource specialist and case manager and all these things. So it's a no-brainer. And I just find it hard that today's generation, y'all live all day on the internet and you don't know how to do this. Some people have even said, and I'm careful with this word because I do not like to toot my horn, but I've been told, AJ, you're a gifted writer and you're a wordsmith. I'm like, that writing maybe, but I don't know about nobody's wordsmith. But it really dawned on me when, for example, my best friend, one of her Navy buddies, she's retired. I like to just say I went to visit, but she was fighting for Social Security and they were giving her a hard time. And her attorney said, well, you're going to have to come up with a better statement. And I said, let me see what you wrote. And she was just basically saying, I'm in pain. It distracts me from work. The meds aren't working. I'm like, Social Security is in, they don't want nobody on the system. They are in business to accuse you of fraud and deny your claim. You have to put into exhaustive detail, basically print out your job description. And for every ache, every pain, every medication and doctor's appointment, you have to weave into that sentence how all of that affects that one duty. It is a long document and it's going to take you years, but you got a much better chance. So I got her information, typed it up, might have been maybe an hour or so, sent it back to her. And I read the email that her attorney sent her. I mean, like, wow, all caps, exclamation point. This is what the judge needs to see. And I'm going, I'm different.
Because you are.
Like to write. I've always been a storyteller.
But that's your name, and people need to know more about AJ Ryder because you do a lot, and people don't know how much of an advocacy you have not just created, but you've inspired people too in regards to writing. So tell our listeners how they can find you, because we really went through a lot and I really want our listeners to know who you are and where they can find you.
Well, I'm only on Instagram now. Twitter is done. Facebook is a thing of the past, but I am at first dibs on change, like the euphemism, first dibs on change. And because sometimes change begins with the letter I, on Instagram. My weight loss page, which is pretty laughable at this point, is dibs on good health. And the podcast page, whether it comes back, I don't know. It's all God. Down for Disruption. So you can find me anywhere on Instagram under those three. I'm pretty.
And her podcast is great. So quit talking negative. You're supposed to be an advocate for change. AJ, don't get me started.
I don't think I'm being negative. I try to avoid arrogance at all turns. So I try to remain as humble as possible, sometimes to my own detriment, but it was yet another thing I tried. I'd spent years like, I'll do this, just Lord, my phone. Can you see me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just haphazardly all over the place, just doing anything that I could to really get different messages out there. And that's the crux, that is the basis of
you have to tell your story.
Yeah.
You just have healed and are still healing from an episode that you have. Trust me, I think the thing that I've had to learn is I didn't want to tell my story. I told my story. Me telling my story is why we're here. You sharing your story in regards to your epilepsy and your seizures is the reason why I shared mine. So you can't take away from that. Your podcast. We've been going back and forth for a while as fellow podcasters, sharing our stories.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, as a person, I feel like you reach out for me for resources a lot, and I appreciate that and share. You have to continue to do your job. Like, let's be clear. Your story is going to help somebody. I'm telling you, I'm that person. You have to continue to go out there and advocate and do what you're supposed to do, because at the end of the day, I just proved to everybody how you're a cycle breaker, how you've done all the work that you've done, and for you to sit here and say, oh, well, if it comes on, oh, if I do that, don't do that.
You know, the only reason why I said that, because you know, especially now with everybody manifesting this and manifesting that, honey, look, God has a perfect will and a permissive will. You know, he will screw our lives up and then ask us, you ready to do it my way now? The podcast sat me down. It really, really did. One of these days, I have to tell you how it all came about. But I had been trying for about 10 years to really get first dibs to where I wanted it, because it's several little branches under there and various avenues, I guess, for revenue, and it never took off. That's why when, you know, someone might say you help this or you help that, or might pay me a compliment, and I'm going, okay, if that's the case, why did it never take off? How come it's not a global name? But anyway, the podcast that I started, Down for Disruption, July 1st of last year, 2023, the very first day of Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. You know, I thought I was doing okay for a new podcast, no podcast experience, to have a guest almost every episode for those, 10 or 11 episodes. By week 5, a live podcast network. The Black creator's name and network founder and CEO, Angel Livis, she sent me an email and said, hey, iHeart wants to pick this up. And I was like, okay, I'm doing something special. And I was getting sicker and sicker, Dr. Torie, and I had not realized it until come August. I had what I can only describe were Charlie horses in the middle of my chest that was radiating to my back. This was 6 months after I had a seizure, a mini stroke, and food poisoning for 7 days. Do not buy groceries from Walmart. And then by September 1st, you know, I'm trying to do this big to-do for suicide prevention month. And I, you know, ended up being in a hospital and sort of kind of bedridden a little bit. So by the middle of September, I said, y'all, I got to stop. I'm repeating 2018, where I advocated myself into exhaustion.
Right.
So for 5 years, I just really stopped writing. I stopped, appearances, if you will. I was just burnt out. And I felt that last year. That's why I said, okay, if everything
Okay.
I'm trying ain't working, this is God telling me to sit down.
Okay. Okay. But it took for me to get you to this point for you to share that.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that you took the time out for yourself for self-care. Congratulations. Because
Yes.
this is your first time telling me this.
It's hard to get.
Self-care, it is fine. Self-care is the best care. So
It is.
even that tidbit of information is a good, powerful resource for people to understand and know. Even if you're on top, sometimes you got to step down off that ladder and humble yourself and do what you need to do for you. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that you did, because here we are a whole year later. That's how long it's been. And
Yeah.
you're here. And I hope that it does come back, because it was good. I did read your letter. It was great. I think you will be a great person for our community. I do. I joined this ACEs community too, and they work. They are out there. They're advocating. They're doing what they need to do. So join us, because that's what it is. We need other people out there that can continue to advocate. Your story is a great story. Your story is going to help people. Like, again, I'm people. We just got to continue to do that, because, again, it's the impact. I'm not the only one. And you talked about Dr. Nadine Burke Harris 10 years ago was that TED Talk. It was 2014. It's
Wow.
2024. And
Wow.
if you are on her page, and I encourage you to go on her page, she's been posting every day. She even put a post up and said, for all of you all that are advocating and talking about ACEs, as you should, I thank you, because I see it.
Oh.
So my last post, I'm not gonna lie, I put it on there when I seen Dr. Nadine Burks Harris replied. Oh my God,
Look, Mama.
I made it. So while yours is our heart, mine is directly to the person that I need to see the message. I need her to understand she's not alone in her journey to share about ACEs. I need you to let others know that we're not in our journey about ACEs alone. We're in this together.
Yes, and we are not damaged goods.
Not
So
at all.
if y'all are still writing, we're not damaged goods. There'll be a quiz on Monday. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. You're welcome. You all know who I am. You'll see AJ, trust me, you will. We're just trying to get her health together. Once we get her health together and we get her all together, she'll be out here with us advocating, not just for advocacy for herself, but for others. We need for her to focus on her first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thank you for being here. I'm telling you, you've helped me
you.
out tremendously. Another episode, you guys. Be victorious. Y'all know how we do. We create safe spaces for you to have those conversations. I've been trying to get this out of her for a whole year, trust me and believe me. And it was wonderful. Thank you again, AJ, for being here. To my guests, another episode of Be Victorious is wrapping up. We thank you guys for listening. You all know it's out there. Tune in next time, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now, you guys.
Thank you.